This is the hint video for the evaluating fair use assignment. This hint video isn't going to necessarily give answers away, but it will point out some of the more important parts of each scenario. We're going to start with the first scenario, which is the Scary Mary Poppins video. So some of the important stuff to understand is that Scary Mary is a video remix of a Disney movie, Mary Poppins. And that the remixer combined it with scary music and sound effects. So as far as question number one, what is the remixed work being used for? Essentially, horror movie would be for entertainment. How is the remix work being used? You would want to look at the yellow stuff up here as well as some of the stuff in the description. So some of the stuff that's important to understand is that he reworked it. He used only small amounts, and that he did not make any money from the trailer. So those are some important parts to note for question 2, as well as question 3. All right, so now scenario number 2 is the entertainment mashup video. So some of the important stuff to understand is that this artist took small clips from 25 different songs. So what is the remixed work being used for? Essentially, music would be considered entertainment. So that's an important part to note for question number 4. How is the remixed work being used? So again, we want to pay attention to the yellow part here. So some of the more important parts are that the artist used small clips. So that's important. In addition, it's important to note that he doesn't make money. And so another thing to notice is that he does sometimes earn payment through airplay on the radio. And those are going to help you with questions 5 and 6. So next up, we have scenario 3, which is the comedy and parody of the hip hop song. So some of the important parts to note is that the artist, Weird Al Yankovic, used it for a comedy. So that's important for question 7. How is the remixed work being used? Again, we want to make sure we have these requirements in yellow. So some of the interesting and more important stuff for question 8 is that the artist takes the full original beat. Another part to note is that he does change the lyrics. This is important as well. Another part that's important for explaining how it's being used is that he sold it for profit. So those are going to help you with questions 8 and 9. Another scenario is the earthquake news footage. So that's going to be scenario number 4. So basically what happens is this man posts video on YouTube of the damage from an earthquake, and ABC News uses it. So what is the remixed work being used for? Well, it's important to notice that it's a news station. So that's really important for question 10. How is the remixed work being used? Remember, we have to have all of these requirements up here. And some of the important stuff for question number 11 is that they used a small amount and that they make a considerable amount of profit, and that they gave credit to the original person by putting his name in the bottom left corner of the screen. So those are the important parts to answer questions 11 and 12. Next up is scenario 5, which is the Donald Duck income gap. So basically what's important to understand is that this particular YouTube channel posted a video that showed several small clips of classic Walt Disney cartoons. So for question 13, what is the remixed work being used for? It's important to notice that right here it says to criticize the fact that in the United States, the income gap between the rich and the poor is at an all-time high. So that's really important for question number 13. How is the remixed work being used? It's important to notice that they used several small clips. Another important thing to notice is that while the cartoons were meant for entertainment, this was meant to criticize, so it was used in a different way. And they added new meaning to it as well, again, by putting this information about between the rich and the poor being a large gap. And then finally, the other thing to note here is that the video was not sold for profit. So these things are important when you're answering questions 14 and 15. And then finally, scenario number 6 is the plane crash story. So essentially what happened is Fox News reported on the crash and they used fake names. And what happened was this person criticized it. So what's important, what is the remixed work being used for? It's important that it says that he gives his opinion on the racist undertone of the news report. So this is important for question number 16. How is the remixed work being used? So some important parts are that it says that the remixer showed a small clip. Also another important part is that he gave his opinion as opposed to using it for news. Another important part to note is that he did not sell the video for profit. And then finally, another important part is that he really added his own meaning by discussing whether or not the airline should sue Fox News for the report. So those are all really important parts for answering questions 17 and 18. And that's it.